All right. Hello, I'm Kathleen Henricks. I am a journalism and media arts teacher at Central Heights High School, which is a consolidated school district. So it's a very interesting place to learn. It incorporates 4 small communities, and it's just south of Ottawa, Kansas. This is my 4th year teaching, and I teach middle school and high school classes, a broadcasting class, a yearbook class, and some other technology classes.
Hey, I'm Laura McLaughlin, and I teach in Derby, Kansas. So a large school district, but not a huge school district. It is 6A in sports. I teach middle school. I teach gifted classes, but it's a gifted class combined with classes like what are called in our communications department. So I teach technology, and I also teach a class called MS 101. And MS 101 is basically learn how to be a middle schooler. Like, I teach them how to set up their Google Drives and how to organize things into folders for classes, and a lot of learn how to handle your own stuff when you have multiple teachers. My 7th grade class is called Technology and Careers. So we do bits and pieces of technology along with careers, but then half of my class is that gifted portion. It's a gifted research class. So we kind of combine what would be 2 classes into 1 class, which works fine, especially for technology, because most of my students are already very good with technology. And then my 8th grade class is called Lead Worthy. We further explore careers, and we learn how to be leaders in the school and in the community. And there are community service components to that also. And again, combined with the gifted research class. So half of their time is spent doing research projects. And right now my students are working on their National History Day projects, which we do every year. And every year we have students who make it to nationals. So we've kind of perfected that.
I'm Sarah Myers. I teach for the Geary County Public School in Junction City. I'm a special education teacher, and I work with students at the private schools in Junction City and the Juvenile Detention Center in the Safe and Secure Care Facility. So I work with the students on their IEP goals of reading, writing, math, or behavior, grades K through 12.
My name is Marlene Ortiz. I teach in the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District. I work at a magnet school that focuses on arts and science, but it also allows 8th graders into the school, so it's a little bit unique. So I actually teach 8th and 9th grade social studies, so I get a little bit of middle and high school. And we chose the topic that talked about technology, and we focused on AI specifically.
All right. And I will get things started off with ChatGPT. I was really excited to be able to talk about this. I've been using ChatGPT in the classroom for about a year now. And so I just have had a real interest with the technology and wanted to get some more experience with it. I was lucky enough that I was able to lead an in-service session at the beginning of our school year this year for my fellow teachers, to just kind of introduce it to a lot of them that hadn't had any experience with it, because I think one of its greatest benefits can be for us as teachers to take some of our workload off of our plates. I think that when it comes to lesson planning, to building curriculum maps, there's a lot of good information that ChatGPT can provide. Overall, what I think is really interesting about it is that it does respond with human-like responses, which is a lot different than when you would utilize a search engine and you would get basic responses and you have to pick and choose, okay, what works best with what I'm trying to do. ChatGPT is much more of a conversation. So you can retool what your request is and you can talk back and forth. Okay, yes, I like paragraph 1. That's interesting information, but for paragraph 2, that didn't hit the mark for me. I need something different. And so I think that's what I really like about it, is that there is that two-way communication and you can refine your prompts, which I think is really important. I was mentioning earlier that today our school lost internet access. And so for a technology teacher like myself, that's okay, what do we do with our time now? Well, my phone still worked. So I hopped on ChatGPT and I said, all right, this is what I was planning on doing today. Now I no longer have access to my computer, neither do my students. What should we do instead? And so then it gives me a list of 10 different things that I could do. And I said, I don't really like, most of these, but 2 sounds good. Can you give me some detailed plans how I can work this in? So not really things that you can't do on your own, but as a teacher, when you're making 1,000 different decisions in the day, to be able to take some of that work away where you can just input it, get some ideas and start rolling with your class. I think there's a lot of uses where that's going to be beneficial. Doing more research on it, I think there's a lot of worry. I mean, I think we do have to tread lightly because there can be some challenges and some concerns as well. I think, when you're constantly maybe using ChatGPT to help you brainstorm, you've got to be careful to not lose some of those creative ideas yourself. If you're constantly kind of relying on technology to come up with ideas, are you going to lose some of your own creative spark? And I think the same thing for our students. So it's a little bit of both. It can be a great tool to help them outline things and to get some beginning ideas, but to be careful to not rely on it so heavily that they aren't learning their own skills of how to explore and come up with new ideas. I think there are also some challenges when it comes to privacy and security. There isn't a ton of information from OpenAI and what it is going to share information, how it shares its information. You have to consider how much information you're putting into the prompts, and then what is OpenAI doing with that. So, I think where it has a lot of capabilities, and I know it can even help grade papers. Not saying that that's something that teachers should do, but you can input a student work and you can input a rubric. And I've done this before just to see how it works because I've been curious. And ChatGPT will go through the rubric and it will give feedback and it will grade that paper. So that's really interesting that it can, but asking those questions, where's the ethical line? How do you use this? And also, if you're inputting student information, how do we protect that privacy? So I think there's a lot of benefit. It's definitely worth exploring. Our students, well, my students are using it, whether we want them to or not. It is a technology that's out there. They're going to be curious. They're going to use it. So I guess my thoughts are I would rather be the one teaching, guiding them to show them the most ethical way to use it, rather than just trying to ignore that it's out there. So I'm trying to do my best. There's still a lot to learn, but I think it's pretty fascinating. I like having the two-way conversations, getting lots of information, but there are parts where I'm still pretty hesitant. So treading lightly, I would say, with that.
Well, I think the idea that when you had an internet outage today, that you logged on to ChatGPT to look for ideas, that is brilliant. And I had never thought of doing that in the moment. So I'm going to file that piece of information away the back of my brain for next time that happens, because we have been having some struggles with our internet access. So every so often I'm having to just pull stuff out of thin air. So I'm interested, like you said, how you're teaching your students about the most ethical ways to use it, and kind of what you're doing with it in class. Of course, my school, actually, I think my district as a whole has ChatGPT blocked and all related everything blocked. It's actually, we got a new firewall this year, and it's been a struggle to do anything on the computer because everything is blocked. My kids can't research. It's really frustrating. But assuming that at some point this is accepted, that would be something that I would like to do, because like you said, there's a lot of things you can do with it, and there's a lot of things you can teach with it. So how do you, like when you're working in class with students, how do you ensure that the students are not using it instead of providing their own work?
Well, we have a lot of conversations. I can't 100% know with the work that they turn in, but the things that I allow them to use it for is creating outlines or brainstorming ideas. So now if they're going on and using it on the next step of an assignment, when I've instructed that they don't, and that be their own knowledge, a lot of that is understanding how they typically write, and kind of checking back with that. I know that there's tools out there that will check to see if something's been written by AI, but I also know that they're not 100% successful. And I don't want to be that teacher that second guesses a student when I don't know absolutely 100% that they didn't write that themselves. And honestly, the class that I use it the most is my broadcasting class and my yearbook class. And so I think we have a pretty good understanding just as a team. It's such a team environment when we work together on those projects, that we're working with other students, even when they're writing their own stories for their pages and they're writing their own photo captions, they're still working with another editor. They're working with other students in the class. So even though we're on the computer, we're really kind of working in real time together. And I'm around the room a lot, just that proximity of seeing what they're doing on the computer. So I think that's what helps, but that's a tough one. I know I've had conversations with our English teacher, and she's kind of gone completely back to paper and pencil in class because it's something that she's so concerned about them using. But I've tried to find ways where this is an appropriate time to use it. And then when we move on to the next steps, now this is your own creative work. That's a great question.
So at my school, it's an international baccalaureate school. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what that is. It's
Yeah, my children are in an IB school also.
Yeah, so
I don't teach it one. My own children are in one. So
yeah, so if you don't know, it's similar to AP, and that it's college rigorous level. IB has a lot of research papers that they have to do. And IB has now published guidelines for using ChatGPT in that research writing process. And so I pulled it up right now because, as you were saying, that you tell your students when it's okay to use it and when it's not. Since it's so new, it's hard to set concrete guidelines. So for example, it says that they can use it to research, but they must cite it. And then APA, MLA, Chicago have not caught up with that either. So they don't know exactly how to cite it, but just in-text citations. With that being said, do you think that schools should be setting guidelines for the whole school on how they should use AI or ChatGPT?
I think so. I think that it's important and it is tough because it's such a new technology. So it's not that the guidelines that you create right now are going to be the same ones that you have next year. It's probably always going to be evolving. But I think that, you know, we need to let students know where that boundary is, where that line is, and what's appropriate.
So I'm just curious, and you may not know this if you don't work directly with it, but I'm curious, Marlon, about how you, okay, you said they have to cite that they've used ChatGPT. And I mean, ChatGPT is pulling their information, the information from other sources all over the internet. So by citing that they found it on ChatGPT, that's really no different than citing I found it online. I mean, it doesn't really tell where the information came from, or if the information is accurate, or, and I mean, and so that's all the guidelines are. That it's interesting to me. I didn't know that those guidelines existed, but it's my older kid that's in IB, so we just don't discuss that. He just handles it.
So I'm looking at the in-text citation. It just says OpenAI 2023. And I think that if you type on ChatGPT, because it's for the research
Right. Mm-hmm.
It might be more beneficial for them to say, pull up sources that talk about this rather than getting information from there. I'm sure if it's basic knowledge, it might be okay to just use that ChatGPT citation, but I think it's IB's way to move with the technology that they know they might run into issues with.
And it makes me wonder if the way, well, actually not even wonder, just assume that the way that is handled in their guidelines will change by the time my next kid is in the program. Yeah, so there is, and I cannot think of the name of it right now off the top of my head, but there is a chatbot similar to ChatGPT that has citations in it. And because like she was saying originally that she did a PD at the beginning of the year, one of our other teachers did a PD at the beginning of the year, just sort of an introduction to all of it, and said, hey, check this one out. And of course, that piece of information is sitting at school of which one it is, but I'll share it with you guys later. But there is a way to get citations, and I suspect it's not quite as good as ChatGPT, but it does show sources.
So is this like a free app that you could download on your tablet, smartphone, computer, or something that like your district pays for? Or is it just part of the technology fees that the children pay at the beginning of the year?
For ChatGPT
Mm-hmm.
specifically, so I pay for the monthly subscription to have, and it's, if you pay for it instead of using the free version, you have access to it more often and you get answers a little bit quicker. And then we actually can't use it on our devices at school, but my students all have it on their phones. Like I said, I know that they're using it. And so it's just kind of been an honest conversation. Well, we're going to use it in a way that's following certain guidelines while we're in this class. And so to kind of teach them that there are some uses that this is going to be a really good tool for, and this is going to be a tool. I mean, I think there's going to be jobs out there when they enter the workforce, that there's going to be a difference between people that know how to use AI tools along with whatever their job is, versus if they never touched it, right? I mean, I think that that's going to be a skill that future employers are going to want them to have. So
no, I agree. Like you said, teaching them now how to use it appropriately.
Yeah.
Going forward.
It is the same thing at my school, where across the board, administration is a little leery of just having it wide open. So we aren't able to use it on their Chromebooks, but, and I've talked to my administrators specifically about, this is what we're using it for. So this is when we'll use our cell phones a very short amount of time, and they're okay with that. But I think it's just opening the floodgates that makes them nervous.
So Sarah, to answer your question as well. It's like any other website. You can either have a free version where you just use your Gmail, or you can pay for it, like she said. I don't pay for it. I also don't use it too often, but I get everything that I am looking for from it. And actually my district doesn't block it. I don't know if the students' devices have access to it, but at least on my computer, I can access it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that they're learning about it and that you're willing to teach them about it as well, like you're saying. When I was doing the research about AI stuff, because I'm way newer to it than you guys are, I just found some apps that people can use in their everyday life. One of them was the Merlin one, where you can use it to create your job postings, summarizing the long articles and long YouTube videos. I thought that that part of it was helpful. I did mess around with that for a little bit. So instead of watching an hour-long video that you need to, it'll summarize it. So then just picking out like the most important things of that video. And then it has the Chat GPT in there too. So the more I was looking up AI stuff, I just saw that everywhere. And so yeah, it's way more popular than I imagined. And it has an image generator. And I've heard about those things where you can just type in what kind of stuff you're wanting to do, and it'll come up with this picture of all the elements that you had put in there that you're wanting in your picture. I thought that was kind of neat. And I've also seen lots of other apps that incorporate that as well. Another one that I saw, which is kind of random, is a bird identification app, where I've actually downloaded like ones for plants before, but I thought, you know, that would be kind of cool to use with students if you're like doing science or whatnot, just going out and trying to figure out what the bird is, and then talking about the different features of it and how it's different from this one or that one, and listening to the different tones and sounds and whatnot. I thought that would be kind of neat, especially for elementary students. And then one that's kind of like an up and coming app is the Reclaim by Google. It just, if you use Google Calendar, put everything in there like you normally do, and then it'll like pinpoint if you make a goal. That was just an example that they use, like, hey, I'm gonna walk for 5 minutes every day. And instead of saying I'm gonna go for my walk at 2 o'clock every day, it'll look at your whole calendar, and maybe on a certain day 2 o'clock doesn't work, but it'll say, hey, you have this time at 1 o'clock instead, so you can still get your walk in, so you can meet that goal. I thought that was kind of neat. So yeah, that's the stuff that I found with AI. There's lots out there. It's kind of overwhelming.
Mhm.
Yeah, your bird app reminded me that over Christmas I did a lot of research to find the best plant app for my father, because I'm gonna have to send him a bird app too, because you know there's some rule about like when you turn 70 you have to become obsessed with bird watching and hang bird feeders in your yard. I mean, like, it's just a thing. My mother-in-law does it, my father
70?
does
What? I already have bird feeders.
it. Well, no, I mean, you can have them before that, but like at 70,
It's a
like
must.
everyone has them. It's absolutely mandatory. When you hit 70, you're like
Yeah.
issued bird feeders.
Especially if they're right outside your window, you could use that app to really try to get a good picture of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm gonna have to send my dad the bird app to go with his plant app.
Well, and
We
then
did,
the
by the
app,
way, just
it keeps track of all the ones that you've taken pictures of.
really.
Yeah, and if you've identified those birds, then it'll be like, okay, this is similar to this one, and it asks you all these questions of, is it this color? Does it have this color? To try to like narrow it down.
So if you're interested, we decided that the best plant app is PlantNet. So if anyone needs a plant app, I did a lot of reading about that, because I knew that he would never go find a good one on his own.
Mhm.
So
No, I've tried some different plant ones with not much success. So yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that one out.
Yep. Yeah, that actually kind of makes me want to take we have an outdoor classroom at my school. And my students are always wanting to go out there because, well, the weather's nice, let's go outside. I'm like, yes, but we have these things that we need to do that
Yeah.
require our computer in the building. And we do now have Wi-Fi out there. So we could work in the outdoor classroom with our computers, but I'm thinking maybe we'll put together some sort of a lesson on birds or on plants, probably plants, because there's no way there'd be a living animal anywhere near that many noisy students. But plants, maybe they don't run away. But we could do that when they're just desperate to go outside, so that I can, so that I can claim that it's an educational experience that they've gone out and identified a bunch of plants.
Yeah.
So you said you did a little bit of, sorry, a little bit of research for the first one, the Merlin. Did you try it out?
I tried the YouTube thing and then like shortening articles, and it will pop up when you bring up like your YouTube on your computer because it's something that you download on there, and then you can click on it and it'll say, do you want to use your Merlin for this to shorten the transcript on it. So it's like
Interesting.
always on the side there.
So it's an app that you have to download onto your device,
Uh-huh.
like your desktop. Okay.
But I mean, there again, it sounds kind of like that Chat GPT. I didn't pay for it. That's just like the bare minimum that you can do with it, kind of. If you wanted to do all of the things.
I know, I was wondering, I didn't know if it offered where, does it come along with, does it show you like guidelines to go through the video? Does it have questions? So if it was a video you were going to show students, does it generate those sort of things as well for
It just
you?
seemed to
So,
like
summary-
summarize the main points of the video. So yeah, if it didn't generate the questions on that, I guess that you could use what's that one app I've used before, the Magic Tools,
Hmm.
and type in your
I've
stuff on that.
done in with YouTube how you can get the transcript. I've just copied that and thrown that into Chat GPT and have it generate questions for
Oh yeah,
students to
yeah.
follow along when we watch the videos before. But I mean, it shows it's a laborious process. So that's why I was just wondering if maybe the Merlin kind of shortened that with those summaries.
Without like the timestamp on every single, yeah.
Mhm.
Because I look at that transcript all the time too when I'm watching videos.
Mhm.
That's actually a perfect segue into the stuff that I have to tell you guys about.
All right.
So I looked at education specific AI tools. We also had a PD at the beginning of the year that not so much ChatGPT, but teacher education specific AI tools that were available to us. And so I want to start with my absolute favorite one, which is Magic School. I have it pulled up here on my iPad. I don't know if you can see all the stuff that it has available. So it has SAT practice stuff, it has behavior plan generators, it comes up with rubrics, lesson plans, science labs, a lot of things that we also have to do. There's also a YouTube video summarizer, a vocabulary list generator, a lot. What I use it the most for is the rubric generator, because they're super important, but I suck at coming up with rubrics. I'm not good at them. So what I do is I type in what I need for it to grade for, and then based off of what it gives me, I'll edit specific things, but it's already created. I'm just tailoring it to what I need. Another one that I use is the teacher joke generator. They hate it, but I love it. I love it. It's very corny, but I don't know. It's a fun thing to use for Magic School. I have another one that is Chat PDF, where you upload a PDF with like a reading, and it comes up with questions about that reading, which I use a lot also because I'm a history teacher, so we do read a lot of things in my class. The Twee app is the one that does YouTube transcriptions, but it also comes up with questions for those YouTube videos. So if it doesn't work plugging it into ChatGPT with the transcript, you just put in the YouTube link into that website and it'll come up with questions for you. Let me see. I also put in QuestionWell as a teacher source, which develops formative assessments. In my district, we are becoming very data driven. And so they want us to have formative assessments at least once a week. So coming up with small formative assessments for the kids to do has been very helpful. There's also Gradescope. I know you talked, Kathleen, a little bit about using ChatGPT to grade. Gradescope is pretty similar to that. I didn't create a subscription for it because it looked more math, coding, science related. So it didn't seem like something I could use, but it is a teacher tool after all, which is why I included it in here. But you would scan the student's work, it would grade it, it would send an exported page with the grades and feedback to the student. And then it would give you data to look at, like who got which question wrong, what are the biggest mistakes, and things like that. But the reason that I became more interested in ChatGPT and AI stuff was that last May, I genuinely had no idea what ChatGPT or AI was. I mean, I had heard about AI, but I had no idea how it was going to impact me. And so in May last year for state assessments, they have to write an essay. And I caught kids using ChatGPT. I knew it wasn't their writing. I went to an AI detector and I used multiple ones just to be sure. And they all said that kid had been using ChatGPT. And so over the summer, I was obviously annoyed at that time, but over the summer, I set my mind to researching more about it because it's just going to increase in use. So how can I use it to my advantage? Which is when I ran into these apps and websites. But doing this research specifically, I became interested on what AI tools were also available for students. And so I found two that seemed the most helpful. One is called Cynthia, which is specifically for the international university, but I thought it was very awesome. So in that website, the students have course content help. So whatever their class is, the textbook is already loaded onto that website. And if a kid has a question, they'll just type it in and it'll pull up information about it and cite it specifically where they can find it in the textbook. And I thought that was awesome. Another thing that website offers were pre-assessments. So if you're about to take a quiz or a final, it offers pre-assessments so that you know what to study for the most, but it also gives you exam prep. So what tools, what kinds of ways can you study for this upcoming quiz and test? It isn't available for everybody, but the fact that a university has come up with a website like this makes me feel that more universities and schools are gonna start to come up with systems like this as well, which is a way to teach students to use AI, but it's also contained to an appropriate use that will actually help them learn rather than just copying and pasting and trying to summarize answers. And then the very last one is called Tutor AI, which is literally what it sounds like. You log in, you type in what you want to learn about, and it just gives you a bunch of research. I didn't spend too much time on that one, so I'd have to check if it has like sources or anything like that, how reliable the information is. But I'm glad that I did a little bit more research and found more tools for both us and the students to use.
I've used Magic School myself. I like the idea of the text dependent questions. I'm thinking I could use that with my students that have comprehension reading goals. And if I really like the text, but there's no questions with it, that I could use that. Have you used the text leveler? Like, do you have students that aren't reading at grade level that you've tried that with?
I haven't used that because the source that the district has purchased is Newsela or Newsela, and you can manage the Lexile level there. So I haven't
Oh,
needed to use that.
okay.
I'm excited. I'm gonna look back at this list and I'm gonna try all of these out. So I appreciate you putting this together. I definitely want to try the joke creator. That sounds fantastic. So no, but I'm all of these, and especially like you said, the tweet was that, yeah, that automatically does the YouTube. I think that would be so much easier. And I mean, just really great sources there. Thank you.
You'll
Yeah.
also have to try out the social stories. You just type in something silly, type in your name with the students, and then you're going on a bus ride to the Everglades, and it just comes up with this really goofy, funny story. Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of neat stuff on that one. That's one I have actually tried out.
And sorry, that was just a bunch of information coming at you at the same time.
Sorry, I have kids coming home from practices right now, and I'm thinking it's going to get noisy in here in a second, but hopefully they'll catch each other and tell them to be quiet. Yeah, I was really excited to hear about the which one was it? The one that you said. Which one did you say you used to generate the questions? Was it Tweet
Magic
or
School?
Chat PDF?
Chat PDF.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I also use Tweet. It depends on what you're trying to get questions from. If it's a YouTube video, then probably Tweet. If it's like a PDF or Word doc,
Okay.
PDF.
Okay. Because that would be that's something that because I need higher level, because I'm teaching gifted, I need higher level questions generally than what's provided. So, we're trying to get a little deeper into something and I have to spend a lot of time working on those on my own.
I will
So.
say, I also work with a lot of gifted kids.
Mhm.
Some of the questions that it provides is comprehension recall questions. So I do have to switch some of them out and do more higher level critical thinking too.
Mhm.
But I think it's a good baseline to form a question.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I like to throw in some of those easy questions because I find with my gifted students that they're so used to everything being easy that when they get something that is super challenging, some of them will shut down because they're like, why is this hard? This shouldn't be hard. Nothing is ever hard. And I've had some meltdowns in my class when things have been a little bit too challenging. So I always try to filter in a little bit of easy success in something that's really tough so that we, to keep them moving and so they remember that, it's challenging and it's supposed to be challenging. It's not impossible. So, well, from here we can move into what I did. So I actually looked at how would you teach AI to students? And the way I went about this was I asked ChatGPT to write me lesson plans. And so I ended up with a bunch of lesson plans about different aspects of teaching AI to students, and just kind of like look through them, and I'm like, so what would I actually want to do? And so one of the things I looked at was I asked it for just an introduction to artificial intelligence, and it gave me a 2 class period lesson plan. And mine are, I have high school lesson plans because I teach 6th or 8th grade gifted. So I tend to go, like look at 9th and 10th grade lesson plans and work from there. So basically, this one was really interesting because it didn't really teach you how to use it. It as so much as lesson 1, they titled Understanding Artificial Intelligence. And it talked about like the concept, like what it is, define it, the concept of it, and then talk about the various AI apps that the students already know, things they've heard of, things they haven't heard of, things like that could be useful to them that a student might use, that they might want to use in the future, along with a little bit of history to it. So kind of just this whole background intro to it. And then from there, it moves into the ethical considerations of it. And I thought that was interesting. So we've introduced it and we're talking about, talks about bias in algorithms. What about job displacement? So people are replaced by AI. What about privacy concerns with AI and data mining and things? And then is there any responsibility to the people who create it? So I thought that was interesting that, like, I guess that the lesson plan I was given, it went this direction with it. So after they talked about that, they have rather than use AI, the activity it asks you to do is to divide students into groups and assign them fields and have them discuss and present how AI is currently used in particular areas. Some examples it gives are in healthcare, finance, education, kind of what you do with them in those fields. And they're still not even using it in this lesson. And then of course, the second lesson, of course, there's alternate options in here too. The second lesson was all about the impact of AI on society. And so they look at real world applications. So same kind of thing, healthcare, finance, transportation, the positive impacts on efficiency, productivity, and innovation, which you can totally see. Then the whole second half of lesson 2 is about the challenges and concerns of it. And it tells us to dig deep into the negative impacts on employment, security, privacy, some examples of what goes wrong when using artificial intelligence. And then suggests a debate. And actually, I love this. So I really liked this lesson plan, and I'm thinking about taking this lesson plan and modifying it because my students love to debate. So they would, do a positive impact, negative impact, the two sides of it, and present their arguments, which gives me in a research class something for my students to research to be able to present the best side of their argument. And I thought that was great. And then that was just that was literally what came up when I wanted to look, to teach about artificial intelligence, what I asked. Then I dug a little deeper into it and looked at what basically how to use artificial intelligence as opposed to just introducing the topic. I got 3 class periods of lesson plans for this one. And this is more kind of what you would expect. They do still talk about positives and negatives of it, but they you look at different AI platforms that are user-friendly, good for beginners. The ones it lists actually are not ones that I'm familiar with. Google Colab, TensorFlow Playground, or Scratch for AI, although I'm quite familiar with Scratch. My students love Scratch. And then asks the students to explore it. So they pick some, they try some different ones out. And then as the second lesson, they have a lot of choice in determining a project they can do using these AI programs, which I don't know that I can do at my school because nearly everything is blocked. So even, things that I would love to teach them and love to introduce them to, I can't get to. So some of the project ideas can relate to like image recognition, language processing, game development. I can only imagine that half my class would be doing game development. Anyway, so that's a whole, it's a group thing, use a collaborative effort, and just take an app and work with it and figure out how to do something with it. See, is this useful? And then of course, lesson 3 is finish up this project, present this project, show the class what you've learned. I really, reading through these, and then I guess I also, before I conclude on that, I also did look at some other options of lesson plans if you want to take a specific tool and teach a specific tool. So like I could find lesson plan on how to teach students how to use ChatGPT, things like that, some very specific ones, of course. But it really made me think about how useful a lot of these things are to use as tools, to ask the students to use them as tools, to teach the students how to use them, and made me a little disappointed that I can't, because as a technology teacher, we want to teach them the newest technology, keep them up to date, keep them current on what they'll use when they get out of school. And so I know that I'm actually in the middle of a discussion with the much higher ups in my district to get a special login for gifted students so that they don't have so many things blocked. So we'll see how that works. But I'm curious, I know one of you had talked about what you have taught at school as far as AI, and I'm kind of curious what you guys have done and how you feel about what should be taught and what shouldn't be taught and that type of thing.
Well, I think it was Kathleen who talked about what she taught about can't talk what she has taught about ChatGPT. But I also have touched on it a little bit. I show them CNN 10s on Wednesday because it's short days and it's just an easy activity to keep them current.
Yep.
I believe it was North Carolina, the district has come up with AI guidelines as well on how to use things like ChatGPT, and it encourages them to use it. So besides introducing things like that to them, that they know things are moving forward with AI for them to use, I tell them I use it. When they have to write an essay, I tend to ask ChatGPT to come up with an essay based on that same question that I posed them. And then I'll present that essay to them and I'll put the rubric right next to it. And I'll tell them, what would you grade this essay? They tend to find mistakes within the essay because it doesn't match up with what I want with the rubric. So it's kind of my way to tell them, hey, I know you're using ChatGPT, but maybe this copying and pasting straight from ChatGPT isn't the best idea. If you get inspired from ChatGPT, that's perfectly fine by me. As long as you put it in your own words, and one of the history skills is to use evidence. So as long as you put it in your own words and use evidence from stuff that I am providing to you, that's okay with me.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, I think I had talked earlier about how I use it in my classes. One thing that I had forgotten about until someone else mentioned about creating art or creating graphics. I also teach a graphic design class. And so we've just been exploring those tools as well. Photoshop has a lot of new artificial intelligence options. And so we've had a lot of conversations about credit, copyright, what is original art? How much of this could you use in a design? And so it's led to some really interesting conversations. And I think a lot of that is still kind of out in the open. But another thing that I like to do when we're discussing AI is that I like to bring in real world examples for how some people have used this technology but haven't done their due diligence to actually research the information that it is giving and have been in a lot of trouble. I mean, it can create things that have never existed. It just can make stuff up. And so you have to be knowledgeable to use it. You can't just copy and paste. So we do have a lot of discussions about that, that it's not just something that you can take word for word. You have to actually have some knowledge in the subject area, and then you can use it as a tool. So I completely agree with you and how you've been using it.
Yeah, that's something that I've touched on too, the biasness too, from whatever source that it pulls information from. We talked about media literacy threads. That's something that I talk to them a lot. When we were asked last week, I had a kid try to argue with me about history. I don't even remember what it was, but it was something about history, about some guy that he saw on TikTok rant about. And I was like, are you really taking a random on TikTok's word over me, who you know I went to college and studied history? And when I put it like that, he was like, oh, well, yeah, I don't know what his credentials are. I was like, that's how you need to view everything you see and read online or in the news. So as long as we promote media literacy with bias and what's accurate, with all forms of technology, I think that just goes hand in hand with AI.
So an example you can use of times when people did not do their due diligence, or maybe, I don't even know, maybe that's not exactly it, but in terms of graphic design, the person who won the graphic design contest for the Wichita River Fest this year began their design with an AI tool, and there was an absolute uproar over it. And my understanding is it was partially his design, but I mean, everything that has occurred since then, every contest, there are comments about it. There are new rules created about, not using any AI for anything. And it has really, and I would not be surprised if it was a professional graphic designer, and I would not be surprised if it's damaged his business. Because there was such a controversy over it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had not heard of that specific instance, but I'm gonna look it up now and share it, because that's exactly what the lessons I'm trying to teach my students in that class.
And it is the cutest design too. It's a frog with, reflections in his glasses. And I'm like, man, that is a really neat design. And then I'm like, oh, well, he didn't actually create that on his own.
I'm curious, Laura, if you've ever had your students, like when doing research and stuff, since they seem to be the ones that kind of know all about the technology and stuff, if they've ever tried to teach other students who maybe don't know how to do that, just to see if they would be able to learn, like, am I using the right words? This person seems super confused, or like researching apps. And if you're going to create your own app, what kind of elements would it have? And then like collaborating with that student and then coming up with ideas. And I know you're limited on your Google searching and whatnot, but then seeing, does this app already exist?
That isn't something that they've done. I do know that they spend a lot, they work a lot together. They spend a lot of time working together. But I've not really had my students talk to me much about these apps and like what they access, how to access, and like work together on that. But now I'm kind of curious to ask them about it. It's been, honestly, we're in crunch time. I would love to have had this whole conversation with my 8th graders and ask them about their feelings about all of this stuff, but we're in crunch time at the very end for this competition we're doing. And so everybody's working hard the whole hour and coming in extra hours all day. And so I'm not getting a lot of time to get input from my students this week.
No, that's good. They're taking it serious. Good for them.
Oh, they are. Well, they know. I mean, one of our girls who went to nationals is sitting in my 8th grade class, and she went to nationals as 7th graders over the 8th graders. So there's some serious competition among my students.
Cool.
I may have missed it. Where did you get these lesson plans from?
Oh, I created them on ChatGPT.
That's what I was gonna ask. Did you use AI to come up?
I did. I created them on ChatGPT, and I actually, for the purposes of doing this as a, as a video call, I printed them so that I could go through and highlight interesting points in them, like things I liked and didn't like, so we could talk about them and, so I would have them on hand. But
I didn't know if you had mentioned it was from ChatGPT.
Yep.
I had missed it. So I,
Yep.
on my iPad, went on and typed it on ChatGPT to see what it gave me to.
yeah, and that is that, and I actually chose ChatGPT because that's the AI I'm most familiar with, that I've used it before. I've actually, so this is not so much related to how students would use it, but I have used it to help me write goals for my IEPs. So if I'll have like just basically look for goals in terms of, like, sometimes I have students who struggle to get things turned in, or students who will turn stuff in halfway done, or like not to the best of their ability. And it's really tough to write a good goal for an IEP like that. And so, I mean, because of course these students could have a perfect score in every class if they wanted, but they have to want it. So then a lot of times I'm writing goals about performance in that way. And so I've done some searching that way, ChatGPT. How would I write a goal for this? How would I write a goal for that? And I've never come up with one that I would have copied and pasted because they're not that good, but it's given me some ideas to work from.
Well, that was an interesting chat. We definitely, we spent a long time talking. Went over our time limit, I think.
We did. We did. So is there anything else anybody wants to cover before we turn off the recording?
No.
Yep, good chat. I agree.